One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just isn't the same. Do you remember that song from when we were kids? It's like etched permanently in my brain. And I laugh because I'm curious about that song. And the whole point was to find the one thing that didn't belong, to circle it, to call it out, to identify the problem. It's actually kind of a wild thing to teach children when you think about it, because what did we learn from that? We learned that if something stands out, if something is different, if something doesn't fit the pattern, that there must be something wrong with it. And I've been thinking about this so much lately because I realized that this is still how a lot of people operate as adults, especially in business and in leadership and with themselves. So I want to share with you this concept of energetic anomalies today and how I really invite you to shift your perspective when you notice or find something that is different. So for those of you who know, or if you're new to the podcast, you might know my background is in finance, right? Still, starting in my university and then Wall Street. And then in my corporate work, I spent years in payroll. And of course, with payroll, every year there is an audit. And if you've ever worked in corporate, you already know the energy of an audit. Suddenly everyone starts walking faster. They're like stress cleaning spreadsheets, like pretending that they totally know where the document is that you're asking them for. It's like, quick, act natural. And I remember sitting there with the auditors, and even as an internal auditor myself, going through the numbers in the reports and looking for anomalies, things that didn't match, things that stood out, things that were inconsistent. One of these things is not like the other, right? And in accounting or finance, like this makes sense because an anomaly in that context could mean an error. It could mean a system issue. It could mean fraud, right? So the entire process becomes find the anomaly, explain the anomaly, and then correct it. Normalize everything. And this is what hit me again, that a lot of people are doing this with their lives. If something works out unexpectedly, we don't trust it. We're like, what a fluke, right? A post, if you're on social media, lands harder than the others. It's like, oh, that was lucky. A client gets extraordinary results quickly, and we're like, oh, well, they're just different. We feel wildly alive doing something that technically makes no sense. And immediately we try to tone it down. We try to package it better. We try to make it more realistic. We normalize it. And this is one of the biggest reasons people stay disconnected from their actual magic, because they are constantly trying to average themselves out to become more relatable. And this is where I work completely differently, because I don't look at anomalies and immediately go, okay, like, how do we fix this? I see these energetic anomalies, these differences, these sparks, and I'm like, ooh, wait, what is happening here? Because what if the anomaly is actually the signal and the rest of that normal, that's just noise? Maybe that song just hit me so hard when I was younger, but this is why I'm so good at spotting energetic shifts in business and people, because I pay attention to the thing that doesn't fit. That thing that suddenly moves faster or that creates these like disproportionate results. And then that's the breadcrumb. That's the opening. I don't try to fix it or normalize it. That is typically where this future timeline is trying to enter. And if you think about it, let me give your brain some real life tangible examples of this. Every standard that we follow right now was once the thing that someone thought was ridiculous. Okay, stay with me here. Before the iPhone from Apple, cell phones had keyboards. Remember Blackberries? We're all out here typing with our thumbs like competitive athletes, right? And then Apple doesn't try to make a quote unquote more user friendly keyboard. They just remove the keyboard entirely. And people were like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Something's missing. That's so different. And now, if you handed a teenager, or in fact, I would argue anybody, a BlackBerry, they look at you like you have just unearthed an artifact from like an ancient civilization. The anomaly became the standard. Same thing with Airbnb, right? Stay in a stranger's house. Absolutely not. At the time, that sounded insane because hotels were the standard. Predictability was the standard. But Airbnb didn't try to become more like hotels. They built around what made them different. And now, I mean, Airbnb is amazing. People will stay in tree houses, in domes, in tiny homes, right? Someone's converted shed with a hot tub and like forest vibes. And we love it, right? We love it. And, last example here, TikTok. So if you were in the online space, prior to TikTok, you spent years and companies spent years trying to make content polished, like perfect branding, perfect lighting, perfect graphics. There were whole courses on how to write scripts, right? And then TikTok shows up and like, here's a blurry video of me crying in the car with like subtitles. And everyone's like, oh, finally a human. Like the anomaly became the strategy. And this matters so deeply right now because so many people are trying to build their lives based on consistency instead of truth. Consistency matters, yes, but not when consistency becomes code for suppressing yourself, distrusting yourself, ignoring what is actually working. Because sometimes the thing that doesn't fit is the best thing in the room. And, in my work, I see this with clients all the time. The offer that they almost didn't launch because it was so out there becomes the thing that everyone wants. I'll even share an own example. One of my favorite offerings of all time was Demigod. And this stems from a visualization I have where I believe that all of us have these parents of like gods and goddesses and knowing the energy that we carry. And I did a whole visualization. I drew pictures. I shared all of everyone's life like as a demigod. And I'm telling you, I really was nervous sharing this. And every time, it's not an ongoing offer because it's so popular. And every time I share it, it sells out. Which, oh my gosh, like maybe this is part of the activation right now. Should I offer some demigod readings? Okay, I'm going with it. Let's put it in the show notes. Sorry, not expected, not total segue. But if you're curious about that, go to the show notes and see how what makes you different is the very thing that makes you alive. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for these to sell out and for me to do them again. Okay, so let's go back. What else do I see with clients? Again, that like random off the cuff rant that they do in their stories creates more connection than the polished campaign of like, I'm going to do a carousel this day and this day, right? The thing that they're worried is like quote unquote too much becomes the exact reason why people trust them. And the instinct is always, okay, but like, how do I make this make sense? Well, maybe you don't. Maybe your job isn't to immediately understand the anomaly. You're not an accountant. You're not an auditor. Maybe your job is to stay with it long enough to see what it becomes. Because every expansion starts as an outlier. Every new standard starts as an exception. And every innovation starts as something that makes people uncomfortable at the beginning. So when something shows up in your world that doesn't fit, that doesn't match your plan, that works but you can't fully explain it, you have a choice. And most people don't even realize that you're making the choice because the conditioned response is automatic. One of these things is not like the other. Find it, normalize it, rationalize it, downplay it, explain it, treat it like an error in the system, flag it. But what if it's not an error? What if it's an early signal? And this is one of the biggest distinctions between people who continuously expand and people who stay trapped trying to perfect a reality that they've already outgrown. Every standard, every innovation, every movement, every wildly successful thing we now think is quote unquote normal started as an anomaly. The first time it happened, it wasn't proven, it wasn't repeatable, it didn't make sense, it just worked. And someone trusted it long enough to build around it. When we find something that is different, we also tell ourselves, well, we can't always do that. And my question is, why not? Why are we so quick to trust a strategy before we trust the evidence? If the evidence is here, can we take that as the breadcrumb? And most people, instead of building around that, go back to their safe plan. Maybe your expansion doesn't care about making sense yet. Maybe it's trying to show you something before your logical mind catches up. I've watched clients completely change the trajectory of their relationships because they stopped normalizing what felt dead. They stopped trying to maintain dynamics simply because they were familiar. And instead, they trusted the anomaly, the new feeling, the deeper intimacy, the unexpected ease, the unfamiliar support. Do you see also the common thread here? Is some of these things are so amazingly, I don't want to put a judgment on it, but they're good. Support is amazing. But if you are unfamiliar or you're not used to receiving support, it can feel like a danger to your system. It can feel suspicious. Because when you've spent years adapting to chaos, peace, of course, feels unnatural. When you've spent years proving yourself, being chosen without having to prove anything, of course it feels suspicious. The anomaly feels uncomfortable at first, not because it's wrong, but because it is unfamiliar. And, I can use a million examples in my own life. Some of the biggest shifts in my business came from things that absolutely did not fit the original plan. Podcasting. Anomaly. One of these things is like, of course. But the speed at which people connected to this, the depth of conversations I've been having, the opportunities this has created for me, it wasn't predictable from a spreadsheet. I wish I knew so I could say I knew exactly this would happen. No, because real expansion kind of comes through the back door a lot of times as a weird little breadcrumb, an unexpected yes, a feeling you can't explain. And our job is to not immediately try to explain it. Our job is simply to notice it, to stay with it, to study it, to get curious and ask, what is different here? What energy was I in? What wasn't I trying to control? What if this moment is more accurate than the pattern that I've been trying to maintain? This is how timelines shift. Not all at once, but through anomalies that you trusted long enough for them to become your new baseline. And going back to that song, maybe the point was never to find the thing that doesn't belong. Maybe the point is realizing that the thing trying to lead you somewhere entirely new is this. So I want you to think about this in your own life. Where is something trying to emerge that is a little bit outside the box that you keep trying to normalize? Where are you explaining away your intuition or your gifts or your momentum or your weird little way of doing things that somehow keeps working? And most importantly, what would happen if instead of trying to correct the anomaly, you amplify it? Because it's not about finding the thing that doesn't belong. It's about realizing that this is the thing that could change everything. Here's my last bit of truth that I want to share with you today. I don't think that the future belongs to the people who can maintain the system the best. I believe the future belongs to the people who can recognize the anomaly early enough and trust it before everyone else does. And take action on that trust before you receive any type of external validation on it. Remind yourself of the iPhone, of Airbnb, of TikTok, of whatever you need to remind your mind of to inspire you to keep going. I've said it this entire year. The energy of 2026 is the energy of innovation. And we are coming into a point of the year, specifically the end of Q3 and the beginning of Q4, where amazing innovations will be happening all over the world. But they might not be seen or amplified in the way that they could or should. So this is just an example of what I'm doing to help these innovators. So, many of the platforms, Kickstarter, or these creative outlets where people share their innovations, they share their experiments, they share their creative endeavors. And we as individuals, especially the weird ones, especially those ideas that are so different, if we can support them with our voice, with our energy, with our money, if we can help amplify these innovations, even if we aren't the ones into innovating ourselves, this is a service to our society that we can each do. So stay weird, stay different, be the anomaly, and help others and support others tap into that energy as well. And going back to it, if you want to find out how uniquely and amazingly and insanely different you are, the activation of Demigod will absolutely do that. So head to the show notes, get your Demigod reading. We are all demigods, my friends, and I can't wait for you to experience your lineage. Thanks for being here for another episode of The Energetic Advantage. I just hope you're having a beautiful summer. I know I am. And I'll see you back here for the next one. Bye. Thanks for being here inside The Energetic Advantage. If today's episode opened something for you, share it, tag it, or send it to the person who popped into your mind. And remember, energy first, strategy second. Your advantage has always been in you. Now it's time to lead with it. See you next time.